Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Just before I start this video, I just wanted to say if anyone here knows anyone who is involved in the scientific community, if you are yourself or you have any connections, please let me know because I feel like I'm onto something here and I really don't know who exactly to bring this up to or talk to about it. But I very, very strongly believe that our concept of, first off, like I said in my last video, entropy is incorrect, and I can now also correlate that to the double slit experiment. The information that I receive comes through kind of like channeling. If you've seen other channelers like Bashar or Abraham Hicks, I mentioned that in this video as well, but it's like the information just coming to me and I'm understanding more and more over time, which is kind of funny I say over time as I'm talking about time in this video. But yeah, I feel like we have it a little bit wrong and scientists have been trying to figure out the double slit experiment and I feel like I have an explanation for it. May not be the most scientific, but I really think that if I had the proper help, we could definitely make something of it that is more conceptual for the human mind as well. So yeah, anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video and my explanation. It's a little bit all over the place as usual my videos are, but let me know what you think. Leave your thoughts below, really, honestly. Let me know what you think. Anyone here who has any experience in this, let me know. I would love to hear your opinion as well. Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm currently sitting in the bath. I feel like this is where I always meditate or have like deeper thoughts about various concepts. So one of the concepts that's been kind of plaguing my mind, again, these sort of come up in me, like the concepts just appear to me as if someone is explaining them in some way, or at least acknowledging them. Like I get words as in like lists of things. This is what happens when you become very in tune with your higher self. It's kind of like factual information, or I receive like just stuff to look up. So one of the things has been the double slit experiment. It's been on my mind a lot, as well as my last video that I did on entropy and how this relates to manifestation, the universe in general, how everything works. And I was thinking about how in the double slit experiment, what I find really interesting is that the observer effect, if you've heard anything about it, I'm sure you've heard of the observer effect. Also, if you don't know about this experiment, I would recommend to look it up right now so you know what I'm talking about. But essentially, the experiment goes to show that photons can be a particle, but they can also act as a wave. And this can also be shown in like electrons and our other particles as well. So it's basically saying our whole universe could be acting this way, where it acts in a dual form. Sometimes it's acting as a wave, sometimes it's acting as a particle. So the way I think of it is like particle kind of like solid, whereas a wave form is more like, when I talk about my videos, like kind of like a gas, like it's just moving on its own, like it's very fast moving, like light. I don't know, this is just the way I'm looking at it. So anyways, it can be in either one of these forms, but the interesting thing is the observer effect means that what happened was when they observed the experiment, when they observed it moving through the slit, so basically at first it would move through, they had two slits right beside each other and they passed, I don't know exactly how this works, but they passed the photon through it, and basically it's split into all of these different like waves of light. Like it's hard to explain. Again, you can go watch a video on this topic, but that happened when they were not observing it, and you could kind of see like the darker wavelength in the center and then the other ones next to it and then more next to it, and it just kept going on. And then when they decided to put, I think it was like a camera or something, I don't know, again, how this all works, but you can, once again, go watch it. But they put like a camera or something to record what was going on, basically because they wanted to observe the effect, and they had anticipated kind of like what slit the particles or whatever were going to move through. And so anyways, when they did this, then what was so interesting is it didn't break off into waveform anymore. Now it just went through and was just particles. Like, it didn't form the same waves, and the only thing that changed was that they observed it. So basically what this goes to show once again is that photons have dualistic properties. Also, it's interesting to know is that photons are not affected by time, like light is not affected by time. So the speed of light is the only thing, like really, I think gravity could be as well. I don't know. The speed of light is not affected by time though. Like where an observer is, like how fast they're moving, like with Einstein's theory of relativity, the only thing that's not affected by time is light, which I find super interesting because, you know, we need light to see and everything. But so anyways, this was a really interesting discovery, and scientists were like blown away by it because they didn't know what this meant or how to explain it. And so I'm just going to give you my sort of theory on this, like what I think is happening here. So basically the way that I see it is that the waveform that appears when they were not observing it is essentially all of the possibilities or outcomes that could occur. So I like to think of it like if you're thinking of manifesting something, think of it like the particle. So if you are trying to manifest something and you are expecting one particular outcome, just like the scientists were when they started to observe what was going on when it went through the slit, if you expect one particular outcome, what happens is that you basically give the universe like a very narrow idea of what you want to happen. And based on that belief, because we say thought affects reality, and again, I'm going to kind of explain more about this, it goes through and it follows that exact outcome. Like it does exactly what you want it to do, and it just stays as a particle and it does that exact thing kind of like it's expected to do basically. Versus if you were not observing it, just like with a manifestation, if you were to say, I only want this outcome, this is the only outcome I want, and you just consistently only focus on that outcome, oftentimes we say like that's what manifests, right? The thing you focus on the most. And then in terms of when you see all the waves and they all are appearing and, you know, the scientists were not observing it, what happens is, if you want to compare this to manifestation, you are allowing every single outcome or every single possibility. So you're not closing yourself off to any possibility. And this is when I talk about allowing. This is when I talk about getting rid of limiting beliefs, not resisting anything, allowing your reality to just happen for you. Like everything in your experience, you just accept it and you are open to any possible way of your desires or anything else manifesting for you. Like you don't limit the outcome. That's why you don't focus so much on the outcome. You just allow the universe to take you where you believe you're going to go. And when you do that, you allow it to stay in waveform. And when you do that, you tend to move faster because you move, basically you can think of like moving at the speed of light, right? So you move much faster through reality, because also in this experiment, they did a more recent experiment with the double slit test. I might talk about this more in another video, but they did a more recent experiment where they concluded basically that time and space could be interchangeable. So essentially, when you are now allowing all possibilities and you're saying basically you're moving in terms of like a waveform, because you're not focusing on any particular outcome, you start moving much faster through reality to the point where you can manifest so many different outcomes. Like now you have so many different possibilities open to you for potentially the same desire to come about in different ways, or for you to experience even better things, because you're not sticking like one particular outcome. You don't expect one particular outcome, which is what the scientists did. Because what happens when you expect one particular outcome is that you slow down time, basically. You slow down like the rate at which things are moving, because your thought process, like your thoughts affect how time moves. And again, I have to figure out how I'm going to explain this once again. I can explain this, but it's just so hard to say all in one video and like have to think about it at the same time. But basically, you slow down time because you try to control the outcome. So when you try to control an outcome, what happens is you basically cause particles, like the way I see it is like you start to freeze them almost, like they start becoming solid again. As in like, so when you are open to any possible outcome, they stay in waveform, they're able to move very quickly, versus as soon as you start anticipating an outcome, what happens is the particles slow down to the rate at which your mind is moving. Because again, if you allow them to just exist in waveform, you don't anticipate an outcome, then they are going to continue to move at the speed of light, at the speed of so-called imagination, as I always say, or pure consciousness. They're going to move at the rate of pure consciousness, which is the fastest speed that they can move. But as soon as you put your brain power on it and you start to try and figure out the outcome, now you slow it down to the rate at which your mind is at currently. And I've already talked about in other videos, raising your frequency, kind of how to do that. I will make another video on it because I know some people were asking for it. But this is what happens. Now you're slowing down the particles to basically match what you're assuming. And it will form a physical form. Like, you'll be able to see it as a particle versus a wave. And this is exactly what happens when we manifest. We bring something from wave form into particle form. So it's not always bad to bring something from a waveform into a particle form, because eventually you do want to manifest something in your physical reality. But you want to basically keep it in wave form as long as possible, because then you have all these options open to you, and now like the best option could come in for you that you didn't even think of yourself, because you are allowing a higher level of consciousness to figure out, your path for you, basically. And it will manifest at some point, because at some point you're going to see an outcome. It's going to be obvious to you, this outcome, and it will basically form into physical form. It will become particle. It will no longer be wave anymore. And that's when you see it in your physical reality, because it slows down enough to match your level of consciousness at that time. Because again, how fast something manifests in your reality is how open you are to all possibilities, which means accepting every single thing that happens in your reality as totally okay, as it's happening, because there is a higher level of consciousness above you that knows what is going on. Think of it like you are in a maze trying to figure out how to get out. Meanwhile, there's someone flying in like a plane, or there's a bird up above that could tell you exactly where to go. But you keep trying to say that you know where to go, and you keep trying to figure it out yourself. So in doing that, you just slow yourself down rather than just listening to the consciousness above. And this is also what happens with entropy, where I talked about in my last video, when you try to control the outcome, when you try to control things. So entropy, again, my last video I talked about how they say it causes, entropy leads to decay, or the definition of entropy is like everything eventually decays or breaks down, which is really not true. Like, it is not true in the way that they explain it. So entropy itself is perceived incorrectly. So they think that order and organization is just everything lining up perfectly. Like, your reality should be, this happens and then this event happens. Like, it has to make sense to the human mind. But that is looking at it from a human perspective. And so when you do that, you slow down reality, and you also now mess with all of these possible outcomes you could experience in your life. So although entropy seems random and seems disorganized, it's just like anything else in the universe. Like, if we were to just first appear on Earth today and like we're studying trees now, and then we see that the trees all lose their leaves, like, what would we think right away? We'd probably think, this tree is dying or something, right? And that's how we're looking at ourselves when entropy starts to happen, when things start to go wrong in our life. We start to think, oh my God, like, I'm not on the right path, something's wrong. Meanwhile, the universe is like, no, this is just part of the process. I'm getting you to another place, but you can't tell where to go because you're down here, I'm up here, I can see where we're going. So when you try to control entropy, like you try to control the breakdown of something, or you try to control all the outcomes in your life, basically you slow down the rate at which you're moving through so-called time, and you basically limit yourself to what you can experience and live a life of basically just either exactly what you assumed would happen, or you just never experience what you want to happen because you're limiting yourself so much in your beliefs. I say it like you start putting yourself in a smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller box throughout your life, the more limiting beliefs you build up. And as you do this, you also internally end up creating negative energy within yourself, and eventually this leads to breakdown, this leads to diseases, and yeah, this is exactly what happens. Like, all of this can be explained, and even the more recent double slit experiment, it's really interesting. They use like a, I don't know, it's some sort of material surface that they put on phones, I guess because they know that it can kind of turn into a mirror. So basically it's transparent, but then if you, I don't know how it works, but when you shine a certain laser on it, like they could make it become reflective, because what happens is the laser ends up being the same frequency, I think, as the surface, and then so it reflects off of it, which again is so interesting, because I look at us, the human body, as literally, like I used to see it all the time as transparent, as in like we believe that it's here, but it's also just another physical manifestation. So the physical body itself, like if we were to just become pure consciousness, like everything would just move through us, just like that surface. Like everything would just pass through us, because we wouldn't be the exact frequency of like any of this stuff, because we would just be in like waveform, basically. Like everything would just pass through, like we would just be one with everything. And that's also saying like there would be no point of manifestation, because the line between imagination and reality would no longer exist. Everything would just be one, you know, like there would be no imagination or reality. That's why I always talk about blurring the line, because basically when we're living in this reality, we're just living in a slowed down portion of like imagination. So you can think of it like that, like you're just living in a delayed version of imagination, and the faster, like the more you can raise your frequency. Once again, I've talked about this in other videos. I basically kind of said it here too, with the allowing and not trying to control all the outcomes in your life. When you leave basically your future open, so-called future, then you end up moving faster through so-called time and space, and you get to experience more things, and you eventually get closer and closer to the speed, you could say, at which consciousness, pure consciousness is. You'd get as close as possible. Basically, things would manifest much faster, way faster than before, because once again, you have much more possibilities open to you. You're moving through so-called time faster, through your desires. And yeah, basically, if you were to get to pure consciousness, once again, I've talked about this, there'd be really no time or space, because it would overlap. Like imagination and reality would overlap, and then at that point, you would get to just one. Everything would be just one, and it would be like nothing is moving, because everything would be moving so fast, it would get to the point where nothing is moving. As in the movie Lucy, you can go watch her example of it. I like to reference that because it's a good example. So yeah, that's the way that I see everything. And basically that's what they call collapsing time and space as well. But also you collapse time and space every time with those particles. When you change them from waveform to particle, you're collapsing time and space. So that's exactly what I talk about, what everyone talks about in terms of manifestation. That's what you're trying to do. You collapse time and space. But you only want to do that, like really, you don't really have to do much to collapse time and space. Like if you are allowing all outcomes, like things will just happen for you. Like you really don't need to try. That's the thing. The less you try to control your reality, like the better experience you will have. This is what scientists have wrong. Like they're trying to control things in terms of entropy. Like our definition or perception of entropy is completely wrong. Like it is not right. And I will continue to say that it is not right. So anyways, I don't know where else I was going with this. I was talking about the second double slit experiment that was recently done. So in that one, I said when they did match, when the one laser beam, basically like the frequency matched that of the surface, like the surface then became reflective and it reflected back the light beam and it changed the color of the light. So that's kind of like how I see your desires manifesting. Like when you match the frequency of the thing that you want to manifest, you bring it into physical form, and basically it comes back to you as in like you experience in your reality. So I don't know, that's the way I'm looking at it. I might talk in another video more about that experiment, because they had like another laser that was pointed at it that blinked very fast, like rapidly, which correlates with like moving through time. And then when they anyways, I'll talk about this in another video probably, but I find that one really interesting as well. And then also in the other experiment and in this one, I think they referenced how when there was less time or between the intervals, like when, I don't know how to explain this, there's less time between the intervals or more space between the two slits, like, it made a difference. And that goes back to, again, like the closer that you are to consciousness, to pure consciousness, like the faster things will manifest. Like the faster you are moving, I say faster, it's like, the more allowing you are, the faster you move through time and space. Like, because you're not trying to control things, because you act more in wave form. Because when you're not trying to constantly observe your outcome, all outcomes in your life go back to being a waveform. Like, all future outcomes now become these possibilities that are all open for you. You can think of it like when you aren't trying to observe your outcome and like really pinpoint it, now all doors become open for you. Like when you start allowing everything and accepting your reality as just like, kind of like you're there for the ride, like you're on a roller coaster or you're in the ocean and you're just allowing the waves to push you. And like, yes, there's going to be ups and downs and things like this, but it's totally normal. Anyways, I could probably talk more about this experiment too, because I feel like I didn't say everything I want to say about it. But hopefully this is a way to explain it. I also like to talk about like duality, non-duality. Like they say the dual properties of a photon, which is so funny because we talk about duality and non-duality in people as well. So we also have that same property, just like that. And that's why also it can be both at the same time, right? Like it can be both a particle and a waveform. When we talk about non-duality, like when it overlaps, I don't know. Anyways, so that is my video for today. This is just like a random concept I wanted to talk about. But if you have any questions, leave them below. We'll definitely talk about more of this in another video because I know you guys like this sort of quantum stuff. I don't know, I'm super into it. I love this stuff, talking about it. It kind of, again, it just, I don't know if I'm supposed to be sharing this or something because I swear the information, like, it really just comes to me. It's like a download from the universe, direct download. Like when people talk about, you know, like Bashar has channeling, like, or, I forget the other teacher's name. She's very popular. I'm sure you guys know Abraham Hicks, I think. Is it her? Anyways, it's kind of like that. Like I receive information. It's almost like someone is giving me the information. Like it's in my voice and everything, but it's just like very faint. And I don't know why when I'm in the bath, it's like I receive the most information. It's so quiet because I have 3 cats and they're very loud normally. But yeah, it's almost like I get names of subjects or things and then I kind of have to connect the dots myself. It's sort of like having like a big, I think of it like a police thing, you know, bulletin board when they have all little pictures and then you're like connecting all the little dots. That's what I feel like half the time. But it's really interesting. And like lately I've been hearing a lot of stuff about velocity and also propulsion has been a big one. I've been really talking a lot about propulsion. I have a lot of examples. There's a torsion clock, I think it's called. I feel like that relates a lot to the way that we move through time. Propulsion is really important. Friction is kind of like resistance, like we talk about when you resist the flow of your reality. Propulsion, I see it as like us moving forward and backwards. Like life is very in and out, kind of like the ocean. Like it's not meant to be just one straight line. And also we propel ourselves forward too, you know, like through experiences and accepting things. Like we can move much faster through time, once again, when we start to accept things. I talked about in my last video, like building up energy, pulling back an arrow, you know, and then it like eventually you let it go and then it shoots very far. What else? Exit velocity, or what's it called? Escape velocity is the other one that I've been getting a lot, which so funny. There was a concept relating to something that I actually drew a picture of a while back, which was like a tension. I was writing something about like how there has to be tension with both sides of a rope, like you and the universe pulling on each side of the rope, like there has to be tension on it. And then there was some sort of concept about like a staircase to space. What is it called? Something, I don't know. I'll have to look it up again. But anyways, they were talking about what it would be like to like have a direct rope from like Earth center to just outside of its gravitational pull or whatever. And something about gravitational pull equaling, what's it called? Acceleration. I don't know. There's a bunch of things that are very significant that I also want to talk about in other videos, but I have to kind of put all the concepts together so it makes sense to you guys and I'm not just saying a bunch of random things like I am right now. But essentially, yeah, there is a big emphasis on you know, becoming one with consciousness, like allowing, just truly just allowing your reality to flow the way it's flowing, and understanding that the randomness is not random. That is like the number one thing I think I would like to get across, is that it is not random like you think it is. Like the way that things come about, the universe basically, like if you take a certain course, like it course corrects you almost. That's a way I've been hearing it. You can think of it like it finds another way to connect the dots, just like my bulletin board of things. Like it's like it finds another way to connect you to your desired outcome. So like if you think you've passed it, if you think, you know, you did something wrong and this could never happen now, like you don't want to put yourself in that box, because the universe will always find a way to connect you to where you were wanting to go. Like they always find a way to redirect you. So that's why we say circumstances don't matter, because it will find a way to redirect you to where you're meant to go. It literally has a million different possibilities, but that's the thing. You don't want to put yourself in a box. And that's also, again, you can go look at entropy. They literally talk about this, how there's like all these various outcomes. And they say most outcomes could lead to disarray, or most outcomes are not positive, which again, this is a human brain trying to figure out something that is not meant to be understood by our level of consciousness, or at least the level of consciousness that they were trying to figure it out with, because they're literally trying to figure out the outcome when they're saying that like it's more likely to get a negative outcome. So then why do they think with a human brain that they're going to pick the one positive outcome, or they're going to know exactly how to get to that outcome? Why not let a higher consciousness, a higher power, basically, if you want to call it that, figure it out for you? Again, I'll make maybe more videos on this. It makes me laugh, the fact that we think that we're smarter than the universe. So yeah, basically let go, let things happen, be okay. Don't resist anything. Like if there was a negative situation, don't resist it. Don't get mad. If you get upset, if you get angry, like let it go. All you have to do is let it go. It really is just about releasing it, forgiving yourself, accepting yourself all the time, no matter what, because the universe has a bigger plan for you. And the more you can stay open to all possibilities, the more doors stay open for you, and the easier your life will get, basically. So stop putting yourself in a box. Allow things to happen. Ignore what science has said about entropy, because I don't believe it is true. Yes. Okay. That is all.